Hey everybody, welcome back to American Idol Unaired. I'm your host, Bennett Shear, back with another singer that you didn't see from season 20 of American Idol. Please welcome Cole Ritter.
Hey guys,
How's it going?
it's going great, man. It's a little bit chilly today. It's definitely hardcore fall here in Nashville now. So we're just trying to stay warm and start to get ready for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Tell me about Nashville life because I feel like, we talk to a lot of Nashville artists, and obviously it's always the dream for a lot of people to move there, and it's kind of where country music's alive and a lot of other genres too. But I mean, even just living there, I'm kind of curious what sort of a day in the life of being in Nashville is like through your eyes.
Yeah, well, I feel like I have kind of an interesting perspective on it just because I'm one of the Nashville natives. There's not a lot of us anymore. Most people are from other states and now other countries too, which is awesome. But I'm one of the few people who actually grew up around here. So, life in Nashville has changed a lot in the last 20 years. I'm 22 now, so I've seen a lot of people come and go. But yeah, you know, now I live in a place called Hermitage, Tennessee, and it's a lot quieter than Nashville is, and it's been great to just kind of get out of the city a little bit and just slow down. But yeah, life actually in Nashville is awesome. I mean, you can find the best music in the world pretty much any night of the week. Yeah, and there's always just new little restaurants and bars and venues that I haven't even seen yet. So I feel like I can always find some new place to go, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I feel like it's those little venues that people don't know of where the more you can do, the more fun and special it must be for you guys as artists to connect with people in places that you wouldn't have imagined. Even though, of course, we always think about Bridgestone or the Opry for country artists, but then again, it's about meeting those people in the places that you wouldn't expect and connecting with fans from all over, anywhere, really, I imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've met so many of my fellow musicians and songwriters just going out, just listening to other artists play. I mean, they all just kind of like congregate in these little bars, and I think that that's really cool. It's just a neat way to connect because it's so personal. You kind of become friends before you become, I guess, like peers. I guess if that makes sense, like in the business per se.
Well, of course, I want to know about your beginnings of music and what got you inspired. But since we're talking about performing, I'm wondering what your first show was that you saw as a fan that really inspired you. If it was an artist that was just an idol of yours, or just something about that experience attending that show, whatever age that may have been.
I didn't see a lot of shows when I was a little kid, but the first show that really, really, really floored me, and I was like, wow, okay, this is what I want to do. I remember when I was 14 years old, I went to go see the Head and Heart play, and they played at the Ryman Auditorium. And it was just an absolutely incredible show. They had a killer opener who was called Fox. Unfortunately, they're not around anymore, but I know that their musicians are playing kind of in different bands throughout the country. But anyway, yeah, we went to the Ryman Auditorium, and I just remember stepping into that place and just feeling how magical it was and how electric the performers were, how much energy they had, and how much fun they looked like they were having. And as a guy who's just kind of just starting to pick and sing on the guitar a little bit, like that was so attractive to me. That looked incredible. That's like what every little singer songwriter who's 14 years old could ever dream of. So yeah, definitely seeing the Head and the Heart at the Ryman was a huge turning point for me, I would say.
I know you play a lot of instruments, and I'm wondering like what all came first. Were you singing first? Were you playing first? I know a fiddle is one of those instruments that makes you stand out. Of course, you've got a guitar, and so what's the kind of the step by step process of how you became interested in singing and then playing all these different instruments and then kind of putting yourself together as this artist?
Hmm. Well, my mom always said that whenever she was pregnant with me, she'd go see like a ballet. My mom was a dancer, but she would go see a ballet or she would go see, some kind of like musical production or something like that. And she said that whenever there'd be music playing, I'd be like extra active and I would be kicking and all that, which is kind of funny. But really, like, I can't remember a time when I didn't sing. I mean, even from like really early childhood, just like making a beat on a table, like with my hands or something like that, or using my eating utensils as drums. So I've always been making sounds in some capacity. But the first thing that I really did seriously was learn to play the violin. So whenever I was 3 years old, probably two actually, whenever I was as two, I went to go see this group of kids called the Nashville Suzuki Players. And I just thought that that was so cool that there were just kids who were only a little bit older than me and they were playing the violin. Um, so yeah, so right then and there, as soon as I saw the violin and I heard it, I knew I had to play it at 2 years old. And I probably begged about a year until my mom was like, "Well, like this kid's like not letting up at all." So they eventually got me my first violin, and I started when I was 3, and I'm 22 now. So I guess this is like 19 years of playing violin, which is insane. So yeah, so I started playing the violin first, and then I picked up a little bit of piano whenever I was 6, but it was a little too complicated for me because there were so many keys. I mean, over 80, and that was pretty daunting as a little kid. So I stepped back from the piano a little bit for a while. But when I was 13, that's whenever I picked up guitar and really started to make the conscious effort to sing. I had been singing a little bit before, little solos at church or at school or something like that. But I started to get really serious about singing and playing guitar whenever I was 14. I was kind of a weird kid, like a lot of artsy kids are, and I didn't really have a good way to like communicate with people like in my peers. So I feel like music is the first outlet that I had to really express my emotions when I was 14 and 13 in that area, like eighth grade. And yeah, that was pretty life changing for me. Actually having like an outlet to like express the way that I was feeling. Yeah, so it helped me get through a lot of stuff back then, and the more I did it, the more passionate I became about it. And then I was like, you know what? I can already play a little bit of piano. I can play violin, fiddle, guitar. So I was like, why not add in mandolin and banjo? And so pretty much like if it has strings, like I can play it. If it has a reed or something I have to put my mouth on or requires me to be percussive, I can't do it. But anything with strings, I can do that. So
Yeah, that's really interesting in the sense that, once you kind of get one thing down, I mean, I know that every instrument is its own beast, and at the same time, you probably have this kind of, I don't know if it's almost like an addiction of like, I got to learn this and I got to learn that. And you just kind of want to keep adding because it only makes you stronger as an artist. I mean, heck, I can only imagine with the songs that you're working on now, the fact that you have these unique sounds because you can play all these different things gives you something kind of cool and maybe different.
it's been fun because right now we're working on some new singles right now. And I've got a great band. I'm really lucky to have them. And I've got like a pedal steel guitar player and an upright bass player, and they're just so good at their instruments. It's insane. And we've got a great drummer too, but and a great guitar player. They're all great, really. But it's been really fun because I get to do a lot of the overdubbing and stuff like that. So we'll go ahead and just like record like the initial tracks right away with the full band, and then I get to go back and I get to play, fiddle parts over it, and then extra guitar parts and mandolin and all these little textures and stuff like that. And it's so fun, and it also saves me a little bit of money because I'm still poor and Idle doesn't pay us. so so it's been good to kind of just be able to do that myself, and it's a challenge too. I love it.
Let's dive right into Idol. I'm sure there's a lot to unpack there. And what's kind of crazy is I think about starting this podcast when the show was still on the air, season 20. Here we are. It's been probably maybe even a little over a year since you started the process of filming or even, the talks with producers. So let's go back to the beginning where you approached to do the show. Did you try out yourself? How did that all begin?
Yeah, so there was like a representative from Idol, and she had found me through mutuals. I had actually had a couple of friends who had done Idol before me. One of them being Walker Burrows, who was in season 18. Uh, Walker was actually like my RA at Belmont.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, at Belmont University. Yeah, so I knew Walker before Idol, and he was great. But I have to call him out because he actually wrote me up like one of the very first days of school for practicing outside of practice hours at a music school. So yeah, it was hilarious. Walker was a great dude, but yeah, he was definitely like by the rules whenever he was an RA. But yeah, like we all supported him and like we're super, super into what he was doing. I think he's just a very talented singer and artist. But yeah, so he did Idol, and I had a couple of other friends who had done it, like Hunter Metz in season 19. Had a connection through him. I wasn't super close with him before the show, but like knew of each other. And yeah, so she found me through all of them, and I guess just kind of liked what I was doing. And they actually reached out to me back during COVID. It would have been 2020. And at the time, I just wasn't very enchanted with it. It didn't sound that great to me because there's a lot of, hefty contract stuff. And you're giving up a very large part of your time during the year to do that, like, and you have no way to gauge like how long that's going to be. So that's a pretty big obligation. So I was actually not really sure about auditioning in the first place. So I kind of just waited, and I don't know, I just like, it kept popping up in my life randomly. And I'm a firm believer that if something just like keeps on like, knocking, like you should probably, open that door and see what's behind it. You know what I mean? So eventually, I guess like, a year or two after I had been initially contacted by a producer, I decided to give it a go. And I'm really glad that I did. So yeah, so that's kind of how I got initially involved in Idol from the beginning.
Well, before we head to the next step, I just have to tell you, you and I both attended Belmont University and dropped out of Belmont University. So I can relate to being in the dorms, and even though I wasn't much of a musician myself, hearing about kids getting written up for practicing too loud, I'm like, I had a flashback right there because we have that same, I guess we can still call it an alma mater even if we didn't graduate, but we literally went to the same place and experienced the same thing. So pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. What was your dorm?
Potter Hall.
Potter? Oh, I was in Maddox, and
Okay.
it was, yeah, I mean, just terrible. Like literally, like liquid would just be like leaking from the ceiling mysteriously, and it wouldn't be fixed for like months on end. And
Yeah.
I think that they could have done a little bit better given our tuition price. But I guess there's gardens to work on instead. So whatever.
And new basketball centers and whatever other.
Yeah, yeah. Our living conditions don't matter. It's fine.
Right, or the quality of different things. Yeah. But one little thing, I mean, we could probably talk for hours about different Belmont things, but I will say one plus of I think it was, I don't know if it's called Thrill Kill, but I'm obsessed with Halloween and I'm still in my post Halloween sadness. One of the older dorms put on a haunted house, and it was scarier than any haunted house that I've paid way too much money for in my hometown, because the fact that it was so old, and like they turned the basement into an asylum and they got kids to chase you around, and it was legitimately scary.
Yeah, yeah, I believe it. Yeah, college kids are pretty scary. Not
Just
on
no, just the
Halloween.
oldness. The dorm was so old it looked like an old abandoned asylum. I mean, it was like it felt legitimate.
Yeah, those were built in, I want to say, like the teens, on that older side of campus, so like literally the 19 teens. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I is definitely haunted too. It's got to be. It's got to
yeah.
be.
From Belmont to the American Idol stage, I'm guessing you probably met some other people who went to Belmont when you were filming Idol. I mean, there were a lot of people there, but I know there were a few from this season who were also are currently at Belmont or went to Belmont.
Yeah, yeah, that was me, Ellie Rowe, Christiana Allaire, and Leah Marlene. Yeah, we were all the Belmont people that I was aware of anyway. But yeah, yeah, and it was so cool to get to have that experience with them. I knew of Leah before that, but I had never gotten a chance to actually meet her. But yeah, we just like followed each other on social media, and just I just had a lot of respect for her as a musician before and now, so it was really cool to actually get to connect with all of those people and like be friends. I actually have a funny story about Christiana. I was on tour in Texas this past summer, and this is all after Idol, and so I had already gotten to spend a lot of time with her and stuff like that. But we were playing a gig in the middle of nowhere in Texas. I mean, it was great, but it was just this garage, and they had all these '50s cars, '50s and '60s, old like hot rods and stuff like that. And there was this lady who walked up to me, and she just started talking to us and just told us she really liked what we were doing, and she had overheard that I had been on Idol. And she's like, well, my granddaughter was on Idol. And I was like, who's your granddaughter? She's like, Christiana Allaire. And I was like, no way. No way. Like, we're meeting in like the middle of nowhere in Texas. And she's like, yeah, hold on one second. I'm going to call her. So she calls up Christiana, and I hadn't talked to her for probably like a month or two or whatever. And yeah. And so I got to talk to her on her grandma's phone in the middle of nowhere in Texas, which was so random and so cool. And it just makes you realize like what a small world you live in.
Can you talk about like what it feels like to, even having not been aired, know what kind of platform it can still give you? Because maybe it's the press, the fact that when people just see that social media post, like I auditioned, and then your town wants to know what you've been up to, and people say, I heard you were on Idol. Like you said, somebody walked up to you without you being aired, and it's like it can still make an impact on you, change your life. So what was that like for you?
You know, it was, I would like to say that it was a really overall positive thing, which I think it was, but it was also hard too, you know. We don't know everything, like they pretty much keep us on like a need to know basis, but you know, like after like you've been like kicked off the show or whatever, like you know what happened to you. You know what I mean? And you don't gonna win, but you do know what happened to you. So I would say that that time, like of sitting, you know, like knowing that like my community is like all rooting for me, and I mean they were really excited. You know, I mean people were like, you know, putting up posters and different stuff like that for me all over town, and just being super supportive. I got so many kind messages from people, and just a lot of people I went to school with, like high school, like they were really supportive, and that was really cool. But you know, like in the back of your head, like you're always, you know, aware of the fact that like you're not going to be able to win it for them, if that makes sense, you know. So I would say it was really cool to see that kind of support rally behind you, but it was also a little bit sad because I like know what happens, if that makes sense. So it's just been a challenging year. It's been a lot of introspection, and I think that the show forces you to really look inside of yourself, which is great. Like I think that every professional musician needs that time in their life whenever they really analyze themselves. You know, they and I it's I know people always say don't compare yourself to other people, but really just compare yourself to, you know, who you were yesterday. Are you any better than you were yesterday? And I can safely say I'm so much better of a musician and a singer and an entertainer post Idol than I was going into Idol. You know, and that's because of the fact that that show just forced me to be very introspective and you know, just like find those areas of weakness that I have as a performer and as a person, you know. But that's hard. Like that type of work is very difficult, you know, to admit to yourself that you have things to work on, you know. Um, so I think that that's really been what this year is about for me is being honest with myself and seeing where I'm at and seeing where I can grow, and not just like giving up on that, but actually, you know, following through with that and picking myself back up and being a better version of myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And when you talk about this year, I mean, you probably haven't even been filming that show since before 2022 even started. I mean, when they film versus when they air, you know, it has been quite a bit of time, and that time allows for you to grow and evolve. And I think at the same time, you know, reflecting on how far you've come, I'm sure is something that the more it goes on, you think, wow, like I've done this and I've done that, and look at where I am today. Because, like you said, if you're a better musician than you were when you were on Idol, I'm sure that with each month that passes, there's that satisfaction of knowing, look at me, I'm still doing it. And the show made an impact on you, but you're still out here and able to do something on your own and pursue this career. I think that's what a lot of people say when they get off the show is like, it was a time in my life that allowed for that growth. You know, it's not, it didn't define me. It was just a period that kind of helped me get to the next thing.
I totally feel the same way, and I feel like I mean, it definitely helped me a lot, you know, like in my professional career. I think it took what I was already doing and it just legitimized it, you know. So now whenever we were sending, you know, venues like, hey, like we'd like to play at your venue, all of a sudden they were interested because, you know, I was very fortunate, and not only did I get, you know, two yeses to go to Hollywood, I got three. And you know, that's a really cool accomplishment in itself, you know, like just the fact that I was even able to, you know, make it to the end of Hollywood week is really cool. But once again, what people don't really realize is that process, from me even being like emotionally invested in it at all, which really started whenever I was like, okay, well, let's give this a try, you know. That would have been, man, probably September of 2021. So from September to like March, this was, uh, I guess Idol was that was kind of like that's from the, sorry, let me rephrase that. So from September to the end of March was my time that I was technically still on the show, if that makes sense. So you're still getting interviews and you're still constantly being asked about it, constantly thinking about it. Like you literally can't talk about anything else with people that you haven't seen in a while. You know, you go to the grocery store and you run into somebody, you know, and that's really like the first thing that they always talk about. Um, and it is flattering, but once again, that's always like in the back of your head, that like what's going to happen. And I don't know, it's a very strange concept if you think about it. Um, you know, this thing that I have been trying to do since I was three, I guess. It's like from the time I was three, I mean, I had loved music, and it just grew and grew and grew until when I was probably like 12, 13, 14, I like knew that it was something that I wanted to do on a professional level, right? So that thing that I've worked already at that point, like 18 years on, here's my opportunity to really take that and go to the next level, And I had seen how well Walker had done, and I had seen how well Hunter had done, and like all these other people that came before me who I had watched. And I really wanted that, what they had. I didn't care about winning Idol, but I wanted to be seen, and I wanted to be understood, and I just wanted to be successful. I just wanted to have the opportunity to take what I was already doing to the next level. So that's a lot of emotional currency that I had invested into just this silly show, and that's like nearly 6 month period of time that I was emotionally invested in it. So that's a long time. I mean, that's like a relationship. So, and I mean, it was just a crazy season of so many mixed emotions, and it's kind of a toxic relationship too. But I feel like you have to go through some of those sometimes to really learn and become a better person. You know what I mean? Never have I ever been in a place that had such a large concentration of just amazing, beautiful, genius people. Honestly, I've never seen that before. And I'm in Nashville, so that's saying a lot. But I mean, just like they're all in one place, and it's scary because some of those people are literally like 16 years old, and they're better than some of the pros out there. They seem more like a star, like they just have it together, and that's really daunting. I do what I do, and I'm the best at what I do. That's it. You know what I mean? Like I can only be the best at what I do, and they can really only be the best at what they do too. But it's still daunting because it's a competition. You know what I mean? But none of the people who were there treated it like that at all. I mean, I was so impressed. I thought it was going to be really cutthroat, and that's what the show paints it up to be like, and that's not true. It's not like that at all. The community was so supportive, and we really all wanted to see each other succeed, and we do like want to succeed for ourselves too. We want to do the best that we can, but at the end of the day, like every single person I went to Hollywood Week with, like I fully expect them to do great things, and I will support them the entire way in whatever I can. You know what I mean? So I think that it was a super supportive community, and I think that that isn't really shown either. So yeah, I think that that's something that people need to realize, is that like we're all just people, and no matter how big or how small you get, um, like even the people who like made it to the very end, the people, and Noah, the dude who won it, like I feel like all of those people, like I see them still supporting even the people who they met at just their auditions, like who didn't even make it. I mean, there were so many incredible people on the show who weren't even shown one time, weren't even shown a clip of, and they were possibly some of the best people the show had to offer. So they just have their own agenda, and that's okay.
I'm thinking about, like, I think you mentioned on your Instagram live, Elliot Greer. You talked about him, and he's like the reason that I'm doing this. I mean, I've shared this story many times. I've discovered him through Leah, and I'm like, I have to interview him, and then I'm like, we just have to interview all the Unaired idols. That's like just an example where I hear people say time and time again, like, just, I mean, everybody has this full package, whether it's the voice or the look or the artist identity, but somebody walks in the room and does something so different, like when he did Hallelujah for Genre Challenge, for example, and it just like captures a whole room, and he makes it to the end of Hollywood Week, but you're like, it's crazy that the viewers didn't get to see that, because you're witnessing something that is like a superstar in front of your eyes. It's kind of sad that the American Idol viewers don't always get to experience what you guys do, say in the audience of Hollywood Week.
I totally feel the same way. Like watching Elliot and in that room, in the Orpheum Theater, was something I'll never forget. It was like, I mean, it was nothing short of magical, really. I mean, it was just incredible. You could hear a pen drop in that room. People were so silent, and that's the thing, is like all these people are singers. Like they know what is good and what's not good. And Elliot was great, truly great, and is great. And it's been really cool to see him like, okay, like whatever, like I'm not going to get shown, whatever. I don't really care. I'm just going to keep going and do my thing, and putting out awesome music ever since then. And it's been so cool to watch him grow since then. I mean, his TikToks are starting to really blow up too. Like he's like nothing is stopping him because he's going to do it. He's like set that in his mind. And yeah, I'm such a big fan of his, honestly. It was really cool to get to hang out with people like him. Unfortunately, like Idol is not the first, and it's probably not going to be the last hard thing that we have to do. It's really just, and you know what though? Like as far as playing in front of like a massive amount of people, I mean that's 20 million viewers. You know what I mean? Or the three most important names in the music business. You know what I mean? Like you've already conquered that hurdle. That's insane. Just the fact that you've done that. So from now on, like you can do anything if you put your mind to it. I really, really believe that. And if you just keep going long enough, you will succeed. If you're truly good and you work hard and you never give up, you will succeed. It's just going to take the right time, the right people, the right places. I really believe that. So just never, ever give up on your dreams, because eventually the right person is going to walk in and see you and give you that chance, that maybe Idol didn't.
Right. Yeah. Now to go back in time, what city did you audition in? And I want to hear maybe some of the people that you met starting out, because as we said, so many great people.
Yeah, I auditioned in Nashville, which was great. I took my mom. My mom had recently just broken her ankle. So, on top of carrying my guitar and my luggage and stressing out, I had to take care of my mother as well. But I wouldn't have had it any other way because she deserved to be there. So, I took my mom. And as far as like people that I actually met there, I met Hunter Girl, who was my duet partner, which was incredible. She's awesome. So I met her, and it was cool because we're both Tennessee natives too. I met this great dude named Nolan Durham. Nolan is just an incredible songwriter and a great artist, and he was there. Trying to think who else was there. Leah was there. Leah and I hung out. That was the first time I had actually ever met her in person. It was great. There was also some kind of like interesting people, like in the very first rounds. They like bring in people I think that are like actors. I think they might have gotten paid. I don't know that for sure, but that's my speculation. Like that they just like pay some of these people to come and just act crazy the whole time, and it was interesting. It was interesting to see those people. Christian was also there. Christian, who sang like the crazy Billie Eilish stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Man, he's incredible. Just what a voice and a talent he has, and just such a crazy story too. Overcoming like super bad vision problems and stuff like that. I mean, he's truly an inspiration to all of us. He's a guy who doesn't take no for an answer, and he does not give up at all. So huge supporter of him. He's awesome. So yeah, so those were some of the people that I met in Nashville, and I'm just still so impressed by on a daily basis what they're doing.
Some people have talked about how meeting the judges is one thing, but they almost get more out of meeting the other contestants because it's sort of like you're meeting your peers, not to say that the judges haven't done amazing things in the music industry, but it's almost like hanging out with the teachers or hanging out with the other students. Who are you going to want to spend all that time with and get to know on a deeper level? It's the people that are at your stage in the career, the people that are kind of doing the same thing. So, but at the same time, also very neat, I'm sure, to meet Lionel, Luke, and Katie. And I'm curious what that was like.
Katy Perry was without a doubt my biggest celebrity crush from the time I was probably like 11 to 13. So, I felt like that little kid again, like super starstruck and giddy around her. She's beautiful, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, she's just a person too. She likes the same stuff we like. She likes to eat potato chips that are probably Lay's, and she likes to eat, fast food and whatever. Like, she's just a normal person. But really, all of them are. Luke, like being in Nashville, I've been lucky enough to see a lot of like the Nashville country singers and stuff like that around. So I guess I felt kind of the most at home with him whenever I was talking about him, because once again, like he does a lot of the same stuff we do too, but he especially does the stuff that us Nashvillians do. He knows all the little same dive bars that we go to and all that. And And I think that's really cool to just like have somebody you can connect with like that. And he was great about that. Lionel, though, he's so wise and so kind, and so encouraging. And he was very, 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 very encouraging to me throughout the entire process, including whenever I was let go. Um, he's just like, hey, man, like you're young, you've got a lot of time. I think you've got a long career ahead of you. Like, I'm proud of you, and I'm just can't wait to see what you do in the future. So he just kind of felt like kind of like he's just such a guiding force, if that makes sense. Like he's just got this mentor energy where he really genuinely deeply cares about each contestant, um, especially. So I was especially impressed by him, and I mean, what a career he has as well. But yeah, like I mean, it's just weird to go into a room with them because they exude so much energy because they're stars, like they should. They just have big energy. That's the only way to explain it, is just that they take up a lot of space in a really good way. So yeah, so that was cool. But yeah, like you said, like the contestants were cooler.
I don't know how much you remember from the experience in the room in the audition, because for some people it's a blur, and other people I'm amazed that given how much time it's been, they remember like every single detail of what the judges said. Or so, what for you? Do you remember much about it, or how was that?
Yeah, I do remember a lot about it. During the process, it felt like a blur, but like I've been able to put most of the pieces back together afterward. Um, yeah. So initially walking in, it was kind of tough because what people think on television is that we walk like straight into this room, but the way that they shoot it is we walk outside onto this balcony. And mind you, it was pouring down rain that day. I mean, just like flooding. And I had this guitar with me, and this is a very nice guitar. And this is actually technically my guitar player's guitar. I have my own acoustic as well, but I just really wanted to play this one on the show. And so I had this guitar out in the rain, and I was like trying to hide under this little umbrella, and I'm like about to walk into this room to be told whether I'm good or not. And that's like pretty stressful considering you get all done up and like you do your hair and all that, and you want to look good, and it's pouring down rain. It was tough. That initial walk into the room was intense because you just have so much going through your head. But once I was in the room, like it was fine. Katy Perry initially said, ooh, 1950s, because I guess I looked a little greasery that day, and and I walked in the room, and they just like looked up and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm good, I guess." Like I'm not really sure how to process these emotions right now, but I'm good. Uh, and yeah, and so of course I didn't say that I was cool, but we just started talking a little bit. We actually talked for a while. That's something that you don't really see, is that you're actually in the room for probably a solid 15 minutes. Um, the audition, by the time they chomp it all down and stuff like that, like it's usually like 5 to max probably like 7 minutes, I would say, if you're really lucky. But no, for me, like I was actually in the room probably about 15 minutes, and we literally just talked for probably the first like 7 minutes, I would say. They just asked me where I had been playing, where I had been from. We just, talked a little bit about just like where my career was at and what my goals were and stuff like that. And it was great. It kind of felt like a job interview, but with three really crazy people. And after that, they asked me to perform my song, which I did, and it actually went really well. I was sad that it didn't get aired because I thought that it went really well. Immediately, like I got, like great clapping from all three judges, and they said from all three that they'd like to see me go to Hollywood. So that was really cool. It was really cool that all three of them were into it. That was great. I played Georgia on My Mind, which is like an old, Ray Charles thing. And I was kind of nervous about that, but like, that's me, like I'm not a pop star or a pop singer. I'm definitely like much more like folky, jazzy, country, just like roots singer. So I sang that song, and I was nervous that because I might not fit the mold of somebody who would win, that it was cool if they still were into it. So they all clapped, and Katie told me that I had a great look, I had a great personality, I had a great sound, and that was a huge honor. Um, And she did tell me, this is kind of a funny comment. She said that my guitar playing was too loud, which, like, whatever. Like, if that's the only negative comment she has, like, whatever. Um, I think that, like, part of the issue too is that in that audition, we have a microphone. We're not plugging guitars in. We do plug the guitars in, but they're literally just like transmitting signal back to like a soundboard. It's
Right.
not being edges or anything. So they're literally hearing just like the straight up acoustics of the room, which that room is just like a crappy conference room in a hotel. Like it's definitely not a sound stage or an auditorium or any space that would be good to listen to music. So I'm sure like the levels probably weren't the best, but it isn't mixed at all. Like it's just like raw acoustic. So that was kind of a funny comment. But you know what? Like she also said that she thought I had a great voice and that my playing itself was good. Maybe just like tone it down a little bit. And yeah, like she just thought that she did say if I were to make Christmas albums, that I would be a millionaire in no time. So hopefully one of these days I'll get a Christmas album out and hopefully I'll make $1 million, I guess, right?
Well, going into Hollywood Week, where you're at the Orpheum Theater, that's a different story because you're in this beautiful venue. I know we talked about Elliot's performance, where, I mean, just for all of you guys, you get to be on an actual stage in this, room with probably amazing acoustics. So, what was it like to perform on that stage?
It was great. The acoustics were incredible in that room. It just sounded so huge and great. Yeah, and I'm used to doing that. That's something that I'm really familiar with here in Nashville. So I definitely felt a lot more at home in that space. Um, yeah, I will say though that was so much sitting around and waiting. I mean, the whole process is sit around and wait, but that place especially. I mean, you are hanging out doing absolutely nothing 1 second and the next minute you're on stage, and that's stressful because I felt like we never really had any proper time to warm up or get ready or anything. But the actual like performance aspect of that stage was great. It was very cold in there, I remember that, which I expected LA to be really warm, but no, the whole time it was like in the 40s and 50s pretty much the whole time we were filming. So that made for some interesting, very cold, kind of miserable days, but that's okay. But yeah, playing in the Orpheum, though, I mean, they had a full production crew. They even had like guitar techs and stuff like that who had tuners backstage and stuff like that. So I felt a lot more comfortable in that space. Now for my genre round, where I guess Hunter Girl was sitting up, and the three golden ticket or the platinum ticket winners, excuse me, were sitting up in the balcony. For that round, I sang Barton Hollow by the Civil Wars, and that was the genre challenge. Had I gone back to do it again, I don't know that I would have chosen that song. I am really glad with how it turned out because the one time I did get aired was because of that song. Um, so it led to my duet with Hunter. Um, but had I done it over again, I probably would have picked something a little bit more like genre friendly. But that's honestly me just probably like going back and thinking how I would win the competition, which at this point, like I don't care about. But I did Barton Hollow by the Civil Wars, and I thought it went really, really well. All of my peers were super excited about it, but the judges were like stone faced the whole time. Like giving like standing O's all day long, and then they get to me, and I thought I had a killer performance. I felt great about it, and nah, nothing. So whatever. I guess like maybe they're not Civil Wars fans, or I don't know. Maybe the way I did it wasn't up to their standards or whatever. But who cares? Because Hunter Girl up in the balcony saw it, and she thought it was great, and that's really all that mattered in that time. So she might have saved me, honestly. Like because of the reaction I got from the judges, I was like certain that I was gonna be off the show after that. So I got all in my head. Listen, like I never cry in my life, like in my day to day life. Like I could probably stand to cry a little bit more if I'm being honest with you, but I did cry, yeah, just because I think just the amount of stress and the lack of sleep probably finally got to me. Like it is just crazy how much pressure they put on you and how much they kind of manipulate your emotions in that setting. I remember being up on stage with this group of just amazingly talented people. And in my group that day was Dan Marshall, Cameron Whitcomb, Luke Greenberg, Emily, who you think you did a podcast with as well. I can't remember her last name right now. and Betty, Miss America. We were
Yeah.
all up there on the stage, and I mean, I thought all of these people were just incredible. So I was like, well, all right, I'm going home. It's all good. And they they told me I was going through, but they did it in a way that's like, unfortunately, your singing is over for today, but ain't tomorrow. And I
Yeah.
hate that, man. That's just tell me, just tell me, stop with this television crap. Just tell me. Um, so yeah, so after that, I was like incredibly emotional and I was very grateful, but it's just because I had gotten in my head and I just stopped believing in myself at that time and just didn't feel like I did a good job. But this is the stupid part about it. I did feel like I did a good job. Truth be told, like I know looking back on my performance, I sounded really good in that round. But because of somebody else, three people's, just like stone face towards me, I got all in my head and convinced myself that I wasn't good. Our mentality is so important and it affects your way of thinking so much. So you have to keep that in check whenever you're doing something really stressful like that. You just got to stay positive. So we walk off the stage and I'm in my line and honestly like we have to go out and do this interview and I felt like doing anything but the interview because I was just so nervous and so relieved also that I had made it through another round. So I just kind of started crying awkwardly and trying to hide it, whatever. And then they call me out for this interview and here I am, this dude who never cries, tries to be tough, whatever, and I'm bawling my eyes out in front of the camera. And it was kind of embarrassing because I never cried by myself, so let alone in front of like a ton of cameras is just super vulnerable. Um, but like whatever, at the end of the day, like that's a real human emotion and human experience that I had. And um, like they were all my peers and stuff like that were super comforting and super uh, just encouraging and stuff like that. And they're like, no, like you do belong here. Like you're great. And I really needed to hear that at that time. So there I was, just kind of shell shocked about the whole thing. Not really sure like how much longer I had on the show, but sure enough, like I walked in there and went and sat down, and we got to the end of the day. The rest of the performers were done, and they got to picking the duet partners. And Hunter Girl, out of everybody who was there, all these just brilliant and talented singers, she chose me, and I was just incredibly honored about that.
So wait, did the platinum ticket people pick the duet partners before you get the genre challenge results?
So they were giving the results pretty much like after a group of five people usually. So
So you already knew you were through before she picked you.
right, yeah,
Okay, the
yeah. So
judges
I
already.
go through, but I was still just like I hadn't processed that they let me through. I didn't know why because I had it in my head that I was terrible at this point in time, which really sucks. But that's just one of the negative side effects of the show. But went out there and sat in the audience, and yeah, like then the platinum ticket winners had the opportunity to choose before everybody else, and she chose me. Yeah.
I feel like I should have been asking more people this, and I never have. But would you prefer, as much as it might be like, obviously reality sometimes the shows they kind of film things and it's not as authentic as it could be. But would you prefer if, as a way to kind of make you guys feel a little bit less stressed, they told you more directly and quickly whether or not you were going through, and then if they were so intent on having more of a dramatic effect for TV only, they were like, all right, now let's get a shot of you actually not knowing, and then now we're going to have the judges act like you don't know and they're going to draw it out, but you already actually know the results.
Yeah, definitely. I would much rather be an actor and pretend like I'm surprised again um, than have to deal with like the like inner turmoil that you face whenever you are waiting for an answer like that. It is rough. Like that 15-second pause that they make, and that's literally what it's like. It's not like it is on TV because what they do is that Katy Perry will say her line, and their lines they were rehearsed, but it's something to the effect of like, "Unfortunately, your singing for today is finished," and
Right.
she'll get this very melancholy tone. Pause the camera to get your authentic reaction. the camera guy literally walks all the way down the line with his stupid little camera, and he is just filming our faces, and we're just praying or
Oh my
we're
God.
whatever. And yeah, dude, and that takes like 15 to 30 seconds of complete silence. Everybody in the room standing in there. It is just dead silent. You can all you can hear is like the AC running. That's about it. And yeah, and finally they tell you, and it sucks, man. Like it is brutal. So yeah, I would definitely much prefer them just be blunt about it. But I guess that doesn't make for as good of TV.
What an intense experience. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I haven't had a specific conversation in a while about like the intensity of Hollywood Week. I feel like, there's so many different elements of the American Idol experience, but it sounds like, for you, you can attest to the fact that obviously for everybody there, just the long hours and the waiting around, and then to be on that stage and to have your mind played with after you've just poured your heart out doing the thing that you love, that means the most to you, that you worked so hard for. And it's like, my God, it must just be an emotional roller coaster.
Oh, I mean, I think that that doesn't even scrape the surface, to be honest. I mean, I'm not going to say names, but I watched people who were dead set on doing these songs, had already rehearsed and felt really confident. I have watched like producers deter them away from doing those songs, like, but in a very manipulative way, like saying stuff like, uh, are you sure you want to do that song? Because everybody does that song. But it's like that's what that show's about. I mean, like literally, they half the time they give you like a list that's been recycled from seasons prior and stuff like that. As long as the music is relevant enough or classic enough. So I feel like they kind of just try to pit people up against each other a little bit, and to raise the stakes of the show and stuff like that. But listen, I'm here to tell you, as somebody who through Idol, I'm very grateful for the experience overall. Through Idol, I have been able to take my platform and turn it into my full time job. So I dropped out of Belmont and I am a full time musician now, and it is incredible. And I owe a big part of that to doing Idol, right? But at the end of the day, too, like that show can really, really break people's spirits because you put all of your eggs in one basket for like 6 months of time, all to just get let go and not get aired. That feels pretty bad, honestly, you know? Um, but at the end of the day, like now that I'm in the music industry outside of Idol and stuff like that, never have I ever walked into a gig and felt that much pressure. I've played in front of, like 5,000 people before. That's probably like one of the bigger crowds that I played for is probably about 5,000 people, which is a lot of people. And haven't felt half the amount of pressure that I felt performing in front of like probably, 60 of my peers and three judges and a room full of cameras, honestly. And I think part of that is due to like this kind of toxic environment that they create on the show. And I think that a lot of people are afraid to talk about it, but that's just the truth, like it's just a TV show. And I think that for people like me who weren't aired a lot, and people like Elliot who really deserve to be aired at least, one or two times, who didn't get aired. I think that like people need to know that they they were just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hard to word. It was just hard. It's probably honestly one of the most mentally challenging things that I've ever done, just because you're constantly having to convince yourself that you're worthy of being there. It's like being in a bad relationship that you can't get out of because you signed a contract to be in that. You know what I mean? And I think that people are a little bit afraid to talk about it.
Right. Because you have the manipulation from the judges who, your fate rests in their hands, and also you have the producers who are steering you in certain directions. And then if you're one of the people who they're saying, are you sure you want to do that song? And then if you don't listen to them, and then you ask yourself, oh, if I had listened to them, would I have made it? But then you have to remember that you also need to stay true to who you are as an artist. And it's like this total mind fuck, probably, because you're just like, which direction was I supposed to go? If I had done this song and I made it through and I made it to air, it could have given me all this exposure. And at the same time, if I wasn't being true to myself, I'm not going to feel good about that either. So it's like you kind of are stuck for a while until it's one of those things where over time, like a relationship that leaves you broken, you heal and it takes time, but then you kind of figure out how to pick yourself back up and be stronger on your own without that
Right.
other thing.
Right, right. So I guess the core message that I'm trying to convey is idle is not for like the faint of heart at all. You know, you got to be tough. You got to be really, really, really tough because eventually, unless you are one very, very, very rare person, you are going to be told no. You're just going to be, and that goes from 100,000 people down to 2 people. You know what I mean? Like that's insane to me. Not to mention, like if you got to get your beauty rest, you got to get a lot of sleep. You're not going to get a lot of sleep because you're going to be filming until from probably you have to your call time usually is about 6 in the morning, 5 to 6 a.m. in the morning. You don't even go home until 11. So you get back to the hotel, you order some crappy takeout food, that takes an hour to get, scarf that down because you're starving and you have to eat. And the food just makes you feel even worse, right? You've got all this like fried whatever matter in your stomach, whatever. And then you get maybe like 3 or 4 hours of sleep consistently for like 2 weeks of time. Like, I mean, it is brutal. People were getting sick.
Mm.
On set and stuff like that just due to like lack of sleep and not to mention like there was stuff going around too. I mean, COVID was still, that's the thing about that time too, is we were still like had heavy mask restrictions and stuff like that. And we were getting temperature checks all the time, but I feel like people like were getting sick more the lack of sleep. Sorry about that. I think that people were getting more sick due to the lack of sleep than they were doing like just to COVID and stuff like that.
Right.
And your immune system way down from just being stressed, not eating healthy food, not getting proper sleep. And then on top of it, you throw COVID on top of that, which thankfully, as far as I know, they were really good about and nobody ended up getting COVID because I mean, we were getting regularly tested, but I wouldn't be surprised if people got sick like after those couple weeks from just being tired and sleep deprivation and whatever else, you know what I mean?
I was talking to my therapist yesterday about social media, and she was like, we're all living on this reality TV show that is Instagram or TikTok. And it's kind of like what it's done to those teenagers who, I mean, it's one thing to get permission to go and fly out to California to be on a show, but we're all, it's pretty undeniable that we're all going to log on to these devices and spend, a scary amount of our daily time logging onto the internet and comparing ourselves to people and facing all of these confusing feelings that come from that. And it's like, I think just right now is a time that, you don't even have to be a part of a competition because the world and society makes you feel like you're a part of this cutthroat sort of thing. And I'm an optimist, but at the same time, I can see how just the generation that we're a part of can make it very difficult for a young person or an older person, anybody of any age, to
Yeah.
kind of deal with their emotions because we're all being looked at, no matter if we're on a TV show with humongous cameras or these little phones with little cameras that still have the power to affect our mental health.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially with how Instagram has become over the last year, the way that they've changed their algorithms. Like, I mean, I see people who have a lot more followers than even I do, and they get like 100 likes. They've got like 10,000 followers and 100 likes on a picture. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's not how it should be. Now you gotta have a reel, which is just to compete against TikTok and if it gets picked up by the algorithm, it can do really well. Like I've had a couple videos on there that have way surpassed 10K, and that's awesome. But then I've had other stuff that just kind of like flops, and that's so discouraging because once again, like we place our worth in these accomplishments, these numbers, and whether it's a reality TV show on television or this reality show of life that we're all living right now, like we're just putting way too much pressure on ourselves whenever we really should just be focusing on being a better human to each other every single day. You know what I mean? Like there are way more important things to worry about than how many views we're getting on reels and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like that was the saving grace of Idol though, is that like the thing that really kept us all sane was each other. Like we all were going through the exact same experience together. And we got really, really, really close in a very short amount of time because of the trauma. It was like trauma bonding,
Right.
basically. I mean, literally, it is. And like I've got my musician friends and stuff like that, and none of them really know what it's like to be on Idol or anything, and I can kind of talk to them about it, but not like I can talk to Leah Marlene about it. Like we can really really talk about things. And we just have this like deeper understanding of like what each of us have been going through since then, and during that process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also, the interesting thing about the part that you got to be a part of is, once the contestants make it to live shows and people know them at this point because it is aired and you have social media and people commenting on them and knowing who they are, when you film the show before it's aired and you're still doing auditions in Hollywood Week, you're all kind of in a bubble because nobody knows who you are yet, and yet you're still filming this thing that the world's about to see, and you're only wondering, like, oh my gosh, like we don't even know yet what the reaction is, what people are going to think of us, like if we're even going to get aired. So I feel like there's almost more layers of pressure when you're filming something before it goes out to air.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the live shows come with their own sets of pressure, but like for you guys who were doing all the pre-recorded stuff, I think there were just so many things to think about, knowing that it was unpredictable, knowing that we don't even know what's going to be produced out of this. We're just sitting here with cameras being told to go here and there, and we're running around and we're, sleep deprived and starving and exhausted. But, what is even going to come out of this? And I think that is, probably only a small part of the trauma bonding is just the stress of not knowing, especially when the manipulation happens, what will come out of this, because people are going to see this. Millions of people could see this. And I mean, I don't know if in a way there was any relief of the pressure being lifted off of not being on TV, or if it was more so that you were sad that you didn't get aired. I don't know where your head goes in that sense.
Yeah, I would say here. Well, I feel like I kind of have like a interesting perspective on it because I was aired one time, right?
With
I
Hunter
had
and the
had
duet?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's it. But other than that, like none of my other stuff was shown. And I'm really proud of how that performance went. But honestly, like compared to what I feel like I can do, like live right now, like like if I was at a show right now, I think that it would only be like a fraction of what I could do just because of pressure and sleep deprivation and losing your voice and forgetting words. Like I'd never sang that song. We did Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, and I had never sang that song before that. So I literally learned the song like the night before, and had I had a little bit more time with it, I think I would have done way better than I did in that performance. Um, so I do wish that more of what I had done would have been shown and stuff like that. But there also was a certain amount of like, okay, like hey, they didn't have to see the judges like stone facing. It's stuff like that, that I'm grateful for. Is like they didn't have to see me crying on national television. That was relieving. But I do wish that I would have gotten shown a little bit more. Or you know what? Here's an example. Like Idol posted this TikTok video of Hunter Girl choosing me, and they painted it up like this big, like it was like this big like romantic situation between us, and that's not even remotely correct. I love Hunter. We're great friends, but it's not like that. And she would tell you the same thing. But they paint it up like this, and mind you, like both of us, like are at least at the time we're in relationships, and it's like bizarre that they like painted this whole little picture up of us, and on top of that, put it on TikTok. The video got 17 million views of her choosing me. 17 million views, and they didn't even have the decency to tag either one of us on her TikToks. Like how many followers would I have gotten just from them doing that if they would have like tagged me and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's annoying the way that they put my stuff out, if that makes sense, and it's annoying that they didn't put other stuff out too, but I have no control over that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, as you said, we did get to see you with Hunter Girl, and and I still think it's so important to talk to you guys who had these little snippets because we didn't get to know you. I mean, we didn't get your story, and really kind of, not to mention the duet is less about you guys individually and more about a collective unit. So we didn't get to kind of know you as much. But anything that you wanted to say about kind of the behind the scenes of what went into the duet, or how the rehearsals went, or maybe the judges' feedback, or the feedback in the room?
It pretty much just like after she chose me, it was a whirlwind. I mean, that whole day was a whirlwind. I cried in front of cameras, and I was like, oh my god, like of course, like if they would show anything of me, it'd be that. And thankfully they did not show that, but that's in my head what I was going through and that day. And she chose me. I mean, immediately I walk up on stage. Okay. The other gold or platinum ticket winners selected their partners as well, which was Kennedy and Jay. And to be honest with you, like I didn't even realize who they had chosen to be their partners, if I'm being completely honest with you, because I was so like flabbergasted that after I had just put myself through this negative emotional roller coaster that I got chose to be her partner. Like that was pretty insane. So I walk up there and I'm just like freaking out or whatever. I'm clapping, like unsure of what I should be feeling in that moment. And literally, we walk off the stage, and they're like, "All right, guys, come on, grab your stuff. We're getting on a bus. Let's go." Just us. So just the platinum ticket winners and their partners. So it's literally there's six of us, and I have to run and grab my stuff. I didn't even know I was leaving yet. And the benefit that they don't tell you about the platinum ticket winners is that they get a little extra time to practice as well. They get an early start, which is kind of interesting because, well, I'll get to that in a second. So we go back to the hotel, which was a really, really nice, like 4-star hotel in downtown LA, really beautiful. And we were in this giant conference room. And basically, like, they give us a list of probably like 50 songs to do. And with as many groups as there were that day, there's bound to be a bunch of repeats. So I heard Chandelier probably, I don't know, 20 times that day. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that they had. But yeah, they didn't really have a very big selection of duets to do, that's for sure. So Hunter and I walk upstairs to the conference room, sit down. We're going through songs. I want to say they might have had a Burning House. I had a dream about a burning house, that one. And we thought about doing that one, but for some reason, like dreams just kept calling us back. So we chose that. And we were lucky because we did get a head start on everybody else that day. That was like the first thing that whenever like the first thing that had happened at Hollywood Week that was actually like in my favor. I just felt like the whole time, like everything was like up against me. But in that moment, like we had a bit of a head start. We went to this other area that was like the practice area, and we got first dibs of the practice room, which was huge because everybody else was just like literally in like these big giant rooms, all trying to like practice like detailed harmonies and learning lyrics in a room filled with, like 100 other people who were all singing really loudly at the top of their lungs. And at this point in time, like it's already like 11 o'clock at night. Some of those people didn't stop rehearsing until like 6 a.m. And that was call time. So they stayed up all night long. In fact, one of my buddies, I won't say who, but he drank like I want to say like 3 or 4 like Bang energies that night just to stay awake to
Oh
try
my
and
God.
memorize. He was on a different plane the next day. Like he was on a different plane,
Oh
something.
my God.
Uh, yeah, not a good idea. I would advise drinking one Bang, let alone 4 in one night. Um, so yeah, like that is very unsafe. But whatever, he did it, and we got done. I want to say probably at like 12 or 1 in the morning. We were pretty quick about it. I did have a little bit of a hard time memorizing the lyrics that night, just because we were already so tired and so flabbergasted from the day. But yeah, we memorized the lines and went to bed and woke up and did our duet, and that was it. No warm up, nothing. You just go in, you practice for, I think you get one practice in there. That's it. You do like a quick little line check of your guitars and stuff like that, and you just do it, and then you go get sent back to the holding room, hang out in a super cold room, literally super cold. Like my fingers were so freezing whenever I had to play, which was very irritating. Um, yeah, like all we had was water back there, which I was grateful for, but just not ideal performance circumstances for sure. Um, I've been at crappy bars that offer more to their artists backstage, but that's besides the point. But yeah, we get up there and we do it, and thankfully, like man, it was cool. Like we got a standing O from the judges, and that was cool. And after that, like I guess it was all downhill from there. I did my showstop around, and I thought it went well. I did an Elvis song. I did Heartbreak Hotel, and the crowd was really into it. But the judges, it was weird when they let me go, which was almost a week later. Like we pretty much just like hung out in California for like a few days near Malibu. We moved locations to film and hung up in the hills of Malibu. And finally the day came of reckoning, I guess, where they came and told us like whether we made it or not. Obviously, I did not make it, but like I didn't care at that point. I was like, all right, like I'm good. Let's go home. Like it's been fun. I'm ready. Like if they let me go to Hawaii, cool. If not, I'm good. I've had a great time. And we literally, it was the most beautiful thing ever. It was just a bunch of musicians in a field and in the hills of California. Um, we all just like played soccer and played music, and it was just kind of like this time of peace where we all just like sat out in the sun and just kind of like celebrated what we had all accomplished together. I wish that moment would have been shared with people, but unfortunately it was not. But yeah, literally it was just us hanging out at this beautiful farm in California, just like I said, celebrating what we had accomplished. And I that's really where I got to really connect with a lot of the people. It was very cool.
You know, it's funny because I keep thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be great if the show aired and had cameras around for some of those like not competition moments, whether it's playing soccer or just like the late night song sessions. But the more that I think about it, maybe it's better that they don't film that because you guys deserve to have those moments that are just not being filmed, that are just memories that you will have that you can almost, I mean, you probably don't forget you're on a TV show, but like it's time with those people that you'll remember. And it's like, remember, like people aren't going to know that. That's special. That's something that you and I shared that, I don't know. I'm sure that you look back fondly on those times when it wasn't about filming something for a show, especially because they probably would have told you like how to act or, you know, oh, you're singing. We want to see more smiles. Like you could just be yourself and let go.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. I mean, there was the whenever we were filming. I don't know if you remember hearing about the really bad tornadoes in Kentucky, like Mayfield and all that stuff.
Mm-mm.
That was in December of this past year when we were filming Hollywood Week. And the tornadoes there just absolutely devastated the community. I mean, like a bunch of people were killed, unfortunately, in that tornado, and houses destroyed. And you know, I actually have family near Mayfield, and my friend Olivia, who was on the show, Olivia Faye, her, I want to say that like that's where she was from. So like her hometown was pretty much like being destroyed, and
Oh
there's
my
nothing she
God.
can do. She's in California. And I remember sitting on the bus like really late with her, and she's just kind of freaking out about that. But it was a very human moment. You know, it was terrible what was happening, but it was like we were there to like support her through that. And I don't know. I mean, it was just a really special, really cool time of peace in the midst of this really chaotic thing. It felt almost like a just like this like liminal space of that like wasn't real. You know, it was like kind of like a dream land because once again we were all so sleep deprived and just had been stressed. But it was like the first moment of just complete peace. I mean, it was beautiful. I mean, the weather was perfect then. Finally, it was very cold in the mornings. I remember like 40 degrees, and we're just like all in this like food tent trying to warm up with tea and coffee and stuff like that. But after the sun would finally come out, I mean, it was just so beautiful. Like literally like 55 degrees and sunny. We were just laying around and playing guitars, and it was awesome. I missed that a lot.
So I guess the kind of the wake up moment is, as you said, it's the day of reckoning. But how did that go down? I mean, what did the judges explain pretty thoroughly why they were letting you go, or what do you remember about the moment that you found out that it was the end?
Well, I was actually, I want to say, one of the third or fourth people to go. And the way that they had that area set up was it was like a little waiting area. And that waiting area was a fake waiting area. It wasn't the real waiting area. The real waiting area was where we were all hanging out playing soccer and playing guitars and stuff like that. Um, the fake waiting area was very picturesque and it had a nice aesthetic to it. And they were filming there. So they had Ryan, you know, Ryan Seacrest came out and talked to us, and he would basically be like calling off our names to go back to get told what we needed to do. Mind you, like I had not gotten sleep for pretty much like 2 weeks at this point in time. So I was pretty tired. And I remember I stood up and Ryan said some snarky comment. He's usually really nice, but this day for some reason, he just kind of like got under my skin a little bit. And he said, wow, you look like you're really tired or something like that. I'm like, wow, that's easy for some. I didn't say this, but I was like, that's easy to say for somebody who just slept in their California king size bed last night and got 9 hours of sleep and all that. And and woke up and probably still had time to get breakfast and get a little run in and come out here. Unfortunately, we didn't have that. So we walked and went to this kind of like I guess it was a building. I don't even remember. It was so like weird in my head, but um, we were backstage, and this is kind of interesting. A lot of people probably don't know this, but every time we go into a room with the judges, we have to get like searched. Basically, we have to get wanded to make sure that we don't have any like weapons or anything on us, which is understandable. I get it. So we would we'd have to take off all our keys, and I would always keep a comb in my pocket just because like you want to fix your hair before you go in to get filmed and stuff like that. So took all that stuff out of my pockets and went to the room, walked in, and it was a beautiful room. I remember that, and we just talked for a second, and they didn't really like set it up for either way. Honestly, I was fine at this point. I'd already gotten my little cry out, the one cry I had, and I was fine with whatever happened at this point. And sat down with the chair, and they honestly were really they were just complimenting me. Like they were really kind. Honestly, they were like, "Yeah, you've done some awesome stuff this week. Like the highlight was your duet and stuff like that. But like you're a really talented artist. You've got a great smile, great personality, great artistry, and we're really excited to see you grow." And they basically would like set it up like that. So it's very open ended as to whether or not they're going to let you go. And they're like, but during the showstopper round, like it started out and we were really into it, and then we weren't all of a sudden. And yeah, so they didn't really like give me any critiques or anything like that. And I don't know if they just needed a reason to boot me or what it was. But I'd never really got any like feedback really, and that was probably the hardest part about it, is that I left not really knowing what I did. And I don't think I'll ever know, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. Um, I know that my last showstopper performance went really well. It was a lot of fun. The crowd was really into it, and I know how to work a crowd. Like that's what I do with my band all the time. So that was probably the most comfortable I had been the entire time, because I knew I had this like kick-ass backing band behind me.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt a little not confused, because I mean, I knew at this point I had already kind of started to see through the crap, and I knew that it was just a TV show. But I do wish that they would have given me something a little bit more constructive to leave with at the end. But that's okay. I mean, it is what it is. And they were super encouraging. And Lionel, I remember, told me, he's like, man, I think that you've got a long career ahead of you, and we're rooting for you still, and we're really excited to see you grow. And good luck out there. And then we all hugged, and that was cool. I got to hug Katy Perry, and she kept calling me Blue Eyes throughout the whole thing, which is cool. She like came for me, probably because she didn't remember my name, but that's okay. But yeah, man, like I left feeling like I had done everything I came there to do and more. And I still feel that way, like I don't think that I would change a single thing about my time on the show, with all the stress and the anxiety and all that. I wouldn't change one single thing about how the show went down for me, honestly.
And I'm guessing it's because you always can learn from that. Like I know, you compared it to a toxic relationship in some points, but it's like you learn from something that can be toxic at times. And that it doesn't have to always be toxic. I think that's the thing. Sometimes like any relationship can have ups and downs, and you don't
Right.
always have to decide whether it was the ups or the downs that define it. I feel like it's sort of like, let's just think about it for everything that it was. I mean, it was great at some points, not so great at other points, but overall, you're going to walk away with experience and knowledge. And it sounds like it literally changed your life. I mean, if I'm correct, this is the reason that you went on to drop out of college and are able to do music full time. Somehow there was that connection, where if you hadn't done Idol, not to mention you weren't so sure about it before, but you do it after being approached another time, and here you are. And, I think it probably all worked out exactly the way that it was supposed to.
Yeah. It totally did. I wouldn't change one single thing about it. I mean, yeah, like you said, like it was the first thing that legitimized my brand enough for me to really justify dropping out of school and really doing it. And it's not solely from gigging right now. I'd say gigging is like most of it, but I'm also teaching a little bit on the side. And I've got students who are age 5 to 75,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's share music with them, and I'm really passionate about that. But my true passion lies in performance and stuff like that. But um, it's just so cool that at 22 years old, I am making a good enough living to get by and pay my rent, and I live in a nice, safe place. I'm really, really, really blessed in that way. But it took a long time to get there. It took a lot of tears, a lot of hard work to do that. And Idol was just kind of the big tipping point. Um, if I was approached by Idol again to do it, um, I don't think I would do it at this point. Um, I I have really thought about it over the last, because it's almost been a year. It's been, yeah, I guess it's been about a year since I've auditioned for Idol. So at this point, I don't think that I'd do it, just because I have such a good thing going with my band right now. We are really lucky, and through Idol, well, kind of. I got this fan who turned out to be a booking agent, and a really good one, and just like stayed in touch after the show and stuff like that. And recently approached me about, asked me if I had a booking agent, and I was like, no, but we're looking right now if you know anybody. And so we literally like just got on with them, and so we've got a brand new booking agent, and they're starting to plan tours and stuff like that, and starting to plan, more importantly, opening slots for bigger bands and stuff like that, as well as festival dates and different stuff like that. We also just got a new producer too, and I will admit my standards of perfection have increased a lot since Idol. Just like I want everything to be like really professional. Really, really well done. And if it's not, like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, but that's through Idol, because I watched a bunch of pros, like the whole time I was surrounded by people my age who were just like on top of everything. They have like booking agents and different stuff like that. Some of them do. So anyway, I just decided it was time to like start taking things seriously. But I also learned through Idol, you can do nothing alone, really. You have to be able to be willing to swallow your pride and realize that there are people who know a lot more than you about certain things. For example, I don't know the first thing about booking or organization. I'm terrible at organization. I'm not good at that, so I need somebody who is good at that to help me with that, you know what I mean? And through Idol, like, we all helped each other like through those really, really trying times. And I think through that I realized that even as an artist, like, you can't do it all by yourself. You can't do everything, and you don't have to. So recently, I've gotten a new producer, and I've gotten a new booking agent, and hopefully what's next for us is shopping around to different record labels and stuff like that, which is only going to like further our artistry. But I'm looking for a record label that likes where I'm at, that wants to see what I'm already doing in like kind of the Americana, alt country, folk field. I want to see somebody who really supports what I'm doing with that and wants to progress that. So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now and where I'm at. But yeah, no plans to do Idol at this time, but I will never say never. It might make sense at some point, but right now, like, we've got a great thing going, and I owe a lot of that to Idol.
I'm thinking about you mentioning earlier on what it was like to sort of be in that state of having filmed the show, but you're still on the show's airing, you're doing interviews. And so now that you're doing an interview, I mean, this is probably kind of different and unusual that like you're now doing an Idol interview like a year later after it. So do you feel like you're in a different mindset than you were when you were doing these interviews while it was still going?
Yeah, for sure. And partially, I'm glad that. I mean, I'm not glad, but I'm kind of glad that it took us this long to get this interview together. Uh, just because it gave me a chance to really collect my thoughts, and I can actually reflect on it for really how it is, not how like my biased brain was
Uh-huh.
viewing it. And because after leaving the show, I had a lot of mixed emotions. I was a little bit hurt. I was a little bit relieved. I was nervous, for what the future held. I didn't know what they were going to show still, because some people were shown a lot in the first few rounds, and people got really attached to their characters kind of on the show, and and then they dropped them all of a sudden very unexpectedly. So I didn't know if I was going to be like that, or if I was just going to get shown once, or I had no idea. So that would have been a really like confusing, and it was a confusing time to answer questions to people, because I still had to not lie. I really tried not to lie about it, but I also couldn't tell the truth either, though, if that makes sense. So I really had to keep quiet about the whole thing, which was hard. So I just usually would just like, if people would start asking too many questions, I'd be like, I'm really sorry, but I can't answer that. And that was tough, you know, like I don't like to be like that. I like to just shoot people straight and just be honest about stuff, how I'm really feeling, you know, and I couldn't
Yeah.
do that for, man, like the whole time I was on the show, which sucked, but whatever. Um, and then even after the show was over, after I had been aired and stuff like that, I think I had a lot of self-worth problems going on in my brain, because with the good of being shown came the bad of it as well. And I think that people don't really like to talk about this, but people are so mean on the internet. So
Mm,
mean. I mean, you know, was so excited whenever my video came out with Hunter Girl, and I thought we did a good job, but some people didn't think so, you know, and that's okay. But I mean, just some people commenting like, "Wow, this is the most god awful thing I've ever heard,"
uh,
and it's like, geez, is that really necessary? Number one, number two, would you say it to my face? Number three, like, do you really even mean it, or are you just like trying to be a troll? You know what I mean? So dealing with that was really hard, and a vast majority of the comments were very positive about it, you know. But it's those comments that you see, they're just so hateful, that just like really 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 challenged me. And I'm glad that it happened, because as hard as it was for me to deal with, like I've grown past that, and I kind of feel invincible, if that makes
mhm.
sense, you know, against stuff like that. Like, you know what, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I don't care. I
Yeah.
really don't. I care less at this point, you know. Like, if you like what I do, awesome. If you don't, there's a lot of other great artists, and you should go support them, you know,
Yeah.
seriously, because they need your support too. So I don't know. I think like I've done a lot of maturing, a lot of growing, since like kind of like post idol, like the initial post idol phase. And I feel so much healthier and happier, and I feel sure of myself at this point in time. You know, my shows have been going really well. We've been having like record attendance at our shows and stuff like that, and I owe a lot of that to idol. But I just don't feel the same, kind of like anxiety around it as I did whenever I had first been aired and like and kicked off and all that. You know, I'm way more balanced than I was back then. If that answers your question.
No, it does. I mean, I've loved hearing it. It's made me so happy to I feel like I can feel your confidence, and you're really radiating when you talk about what you're doing now, because I think it's kind of coming full circle, because we sort of got into, like, before we really even dived into the idol details, we were talking about like how it had still changed your life and how you were still doing really well. But now I'm really seeing like the fact that you are thinking about shopping to labels, the fact that you have a booking agent, and because they were a fan, it all came together for you. And I feel like the fact that you had to sort of process some of the like we said, there's ups and downs, and you processed more of the downs and maybe got that out of the way. And as I said earlier, I'm an optimist. I like to think about, what did you get out of it? What did it do for you? Maybe more so than what it did to you. And I think you're at a place in your life now where you're thinking about what it did for you, and it doesn't define you. So it's not just about like, oh, well, I'm going to look at all of my success and base it off of American Idol. It was a stepping stone for you, but ultimately what you achieve in your career is going to be because you, Cole Ritter, are talented, not because you got on American Idol. American Idol was lucky to have you. American Idol found you, and you're the one that's going to make this happen. So the sky's the limit.
Thanks, man. That's really encouraging. And yeah, I would just encourage, if someone wants to do idol, I would encourage them to do it if they feel like they're in a mental place that's strong enough to handle what that's going to throw at them. But the biggest piece of encouragement I can give to any, you know, up and coming artist or person who wants to do idol or whatever, is just to never give up, ever, 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 ever. I really believe that there are so many just ridiculously talented artists who gave up just too soon. You know, if they would have played that one extra gig, the right person would have come along. Or, you know, it's really just staying in the game a little bit longer. You know, Chris Stapleton is one of my heroes, and I feel like he's just a prime example of that. You know, he talks a lot about how hard it was to get in the position that he's in. You know, like he wrote for so many people, including Luke Bryan. You know, like he's written for some very successful, you know, kind of pop country people. But at the end of the day, now that whenever he was in his 30s, is really whenever his career picked up steam. You know, as Chris Stapleton, and he really got to start making the music that he wanted to make. I think that he's just a perfect example of, if you stay in the game long enough and you work really, really, really hard, you will succeed no matter what, even if it's in your 30s, you know?
Yeah. And the fact that, again, we're both Belmont dropouts who are pursuing our dreams and saying, you know what, we don't need to do what everybody is saying we have to do. I feel very inspired by you, and I hope that everybody else listening is inspired. And hey, if you have a dream, whether it's to be a singer, to do anything, just go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Never give up on your dreams. Just keep working hard and nose to the grindstone and never give up.
As much as I've enjoyed talking, I'm really excited to hear you sing, and I would love to know what you're going to sing for us and what this song means to you. So tell me about it.
The song I'm going to sing is actually an original. This is one that I would have loved to play on Idol. But this one is called "All the Stars Across the Sky," and it's for my first EP. But I wrote it a couple of years ago on a trip out to Yellowstone National Park, and I was just so inspired by how vast the sky and how far away the stars were, and how clearly you could see them. And I kind of just I like to personify a lot of like inanimate things like stars and give them
Uh-huh.
life. So hey, this is a song called "All the Stars Across the Sky."
Cool.
She left me on the side of the highway, alone, alone facing west. Stars my only guide. And all the stars across the sky all at once began to cry, as if they knew my breaking heart so well. They sang out, "Oh, it's me," as if they were all mocking me, and all the stars across the sky forever watching. All was lost from evil tricks, a tall bottle, and black magic games. All I ever knew was lost. And all the stars across the sky all at once began to cry, as if they knew my breaking heart so well. They sang out, "Oh, it's me," as if they were all mocking, and all the stars across the sky forever watching. They sang out, "Oh, it's me," as if they were all mocking me, and all the stars across the sky forever watching me.
Mm. Man, that was so great. And I was just thinking, like one thing I was just really at the end, I was like, man, if that's what I'm hearing just over this Zoom, I would love to see you live, because to see you with the band, to see you on a stage in front of a crowd, to have such a great voice like that, and then I'm sure that the crowd just like it, you feed off of that even more. I mean, wow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's my band is I'm really lucky to have them. And we usually on that song we usually have like pedal steel guitar and
Hmm.
upright bass and stuff like that, and it just adds so much texture to it. But Yeah, yeah. So that's a little bit more on the kind of slow end of what we do, but yeah, it's a song that doesn't have a lot of frills. It doesn't have a lot of crazy riffs or anything like that. But I hope that it just takes people out of their day to day life and takes them to a different world, if that makes sense. Did you want to hear one more?
Go for it.
Cool. This one's unreleased, actually. Got to tune my guitar for it.
Cool.
This one's actually one that we're recording right now with our producer. It's called Miss Amnesia.
Mm.
And it's kind of a song that I wrote a couple years ago. And whenever I wrote it, it seemed very relevant to me. I wrote it when I was like 18, started writing it anyway. And the lick I wrote whenever I was like 17. So this one's been a long time in the making. And I kind of, for some reason, like fell out of love with the song for a little while. And all of a sudden, for some reason, it felt relevant again. So I
Mm.
decided to record this one. But yeah, this is another one I would have liked to perform on Idol. It's a little bit more happy, but
Hmm.
it's called Miss Amnesia. Here we go. 2, 3. So I've been thinking about the things that you said, all the things you never told me, all the things you don't regret, and all this time I couldn't help but think what really went wrong between you and me. My sweet amnesia, now she's getting me down, now she's getting me down. My sweet amnesia, she's taking all of these memories from now. So I've been thinking about the things that you did, all the things you never told me, about the things you don't regret. And all this time, I couldn't help but think, my sweet amnesia, yeah, she's getting me down, now she's getting me down. My sweet amnesia, she's taking all of these memories from me now.
That was awesome. I love what you did with the guitar at the end. It was see, I wish I knew my the proper terms because it almost sounded like a little bit of a key change or something, but it was really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I threw in a nice little kind of a weird chord there, and then I like
Yeah.
to result. Yeah, yeah. That's probably the Belmont talking a little bit, but that's okay.
Again, whether you're sitting in your room or you're on stage, I can just you can tell that this is what you love to do, and it makes me happy when I see somebody doing what they love to do, let alone this is your life and you get to do this as a career. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, man, there really is no greater gift. I growing up here in Tennessee, man, like there's a lot of people who just kind of like settle for whatever, they settle for jobs that they hate, and that sucks. A lot of my peers. I mean, I've got so many peers who are just phenomenal musicians who love it, whose parents like would discourage them from doing that because it's not a safe job. I feel really lucky to have parents who weren't like that at all. They're very supportive, but yeah, go for your dreams always. Like, don't stop. Nose to the grindstone. Keep going and make your dreams reality. And I feel like I've got the greatest job in the world, and I not that I'm really good at anything else anyway, but yeah, man, I'm so blessed right now, honestly.
Well, I'm dying to come see you live. We got to meet someday, and I want to hear so many more songs of yours. So I know there's a lot of other people who want to listen to you and want to come see you. So tell me where we can go to follow you, to find out where you're playing, and just to kind of stay tuned for all things Cole Ritter.
Yeah, so on Instagram, my handle is Cole Wesley Ritter. You can also follow Cole Ritter and the Night Owls as well, which is my main project. Yeah, we're going to be posting updates on both of those pages. On Facebook, it's just Cole Ritter and the Night Owls. ColeRitterandthenightowls.com is our website. So I try and keep it easy. And you can just find us on Apple Music, Spotify under the same name as well. So yeah, go and check it out.
Well, cool. Before I plug our socials, I want to mention, Cole, we have an American Idol Unaired playlist on Spotify. I wanted to have one place where we could put a bunch of songs from all of our guests so that they can, listeners can kind of just hit shuffle. We can add stuff from you, your band, if you'd like. You can send me some stuff, and I would love to feature you on that playlist. So you guys can click the link in our bio that says the American Idol Unaired playlist. In addition to our podcast episodes, you can check out music from Cole and the Night Owls. Thank you guys so much. You can follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Idol Unaired Podcast. And Cole, thank you so much for being a part of American Idol Unaired.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.